Yeah, go on.
At least I didn't get like halfway through the stream and realize I was muted. All right, yeah, there we go. I think it's on OBS. All right, hello everyone. Hope you're all doing well and welcome to the stream. Hope you had a great week so far. I know we've all had a great week so far. A lot of stuff's been happening. I'm your host Hector, and I'm here with my host Gilbert,
Hey, everybody.
and I'm also here with returning guest William McGimpsey.
Good day, everyone. It's good to be here again.
Glad to have you back. And it's not just McGimpsey that's back. As it says right on the White House website, America is back. Trump is back in the White House.
Yeah.
Well, so he's been in for less than a week, and it's already pretty interesting times. We could talk about the executive orders, which we will. He's signed about, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 executive orders already. Most of them are pretty good. He's rescinded like 100 of Biden's old executive orders, mostly to do with stuff like COVID, open borders, diversity and equity and affirmative action, that sort of thing. So lots of great stuff. Trump's back in the White House, and America's back.
But is it a new golden age? And what are we really getting into? Hopefully, yeah, we'll get into some analysis with that soon. Did you want to take the lead on this, Hector, or?
Yeah. So we can talk about Trump's executive orders, right? Because he's been in for about a week, so that's all he's really had time for. I mean, there hasn't been any bills passed through Congress yet. He's still trying to get his committee passed by the Senate, which I think, what's his name? Hegsworth or something? Just got through Hegseth. He got through like literally half an hour ago. It was like a tiebreaker, and JD Vance had to break the tie in the Senate, so he got him through. He was going through a whole bunch of there was drama with accusations of people making these false accusations, made up stories about him, like, I don't know, assaulting his ex-wife or something like that.
Even in the light of the supposed golden age we're entering into, the same old sort of liberal line tends to follow people who attach themselves to Trump wherever they go. So it's just it's more and more of the same. It's like that bishop, the like lesbian looking bishop or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's some good accomplishments for sure, but I don't know if people. Yeah, it's like a good thing. Like a lot has happened, a lot has been accomplished, but that there's still this lingering smell of sort of liberalism, that's a far left liberalism that hangs in the air, which is kind of like a lot of it. I feel has been defeated, but at the same time, it needs to be rooted out.
I wouldn't say defeated. They're more demoralized because after the first Trump term, you had all these, like non-stop, you had all these NGOs, judges, supposed religious leaders come out and be like, we're going to resist Grump for Trump or whatever.
Yeah.
And even like JD Vance is going like, Trump is the next Hitler, like real like stupid stuff. So obviously,
it really looks like they've put the work in, the groundwork in, so that they didn't have the same problems they did last time. So they had a plan. They've got all these executive orders lined up, and they've hit the running to make a difference straight away. I mean, I've been positive on Trump all along. I thought he would do good things. I thought he wouldn't do everything that I wanted, but he would certainly be a lot better than the Democrats and do a lot of good stuff. But he's surprised on the upside, right? So
yeah.
These executive orders that they're really taking the hammer to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Like this is the Chris Rufo grand strategy to destroy leftism, and so they're really going hard after that. There were some concerns, I think, after sort of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy ran that that surprise Christmas Twitter campaign. More H-1B visas, that Trump would go a bit softer on the immigration stuff. And it's still pretty early, but it looks like that's not going to happen. They're going to take that seriously. And the biggest indication of that, well, there's two sort of things here. The biggest indication, I think, is the executive order to get rid of birthright citizenship, which is that's
big
huge,
stuff. Yeah.
And the second one is it looks like all the all the planning and the groundwork for doing the deportations is actually going through.
Well, he's already done some. I mean, it's small numbers starting off, but you'd hope these numbers ram up. He's deporting about 500 people per day, which needs to be about 10 times higher. But it's a start.
Mm.
The
I would-
deportations just got 10 feet higher.
Yeah.
I
But
would.
it's better than
yeah, go
nothing.
ahead.
It's better than like the zero or like barely any that was happening under the current last administration. It's not current anymore. So it's good to see that start, but it needs to get much, much higher, much like the wall, as you said.
But you'd imagine there has to be, like, it takes a bit to sort of ramp up, get all your sort of your border patrol and your whoever's doing it, whatever department's doing it, the FBI or whatever government department is doing it, Homeland Security maybe. Like, it takes a while to get all the plans and the people organized to do something. So you wouldn't expect that people would be doing a massive deportation thing on day one. You'd expect the orders to be made, but it takes, once, give them a few weeks, give them a few months to sort of get the people into gear and get a plan and get things going, and then we'll see whether they're really serious about that.
Yeah.
Now, on the executive order on birthright citizenship, I think this has already been challenged in some federal court somewhere. Someone's put a halt on it.
That was going to happen. Like it was going to pretty much. That was guaranteed to pretty much go up to the Supreme Court at some point. So
yeah, the 14th Amendment, depending on sort of how you read it, I mean, most people who would read that would say that the 14th Amendment sort of would guarantee birthright citizenship. But it's sort of an insane policy, and it's being exploited, right? There's this thing called birth tourism, where
there's one here. Like
where
just
people-
absolutely insanity with some of these people.
Yeah, so you get knocked up and you think, well, what's the best thing I can do for my kid? I know, I'll go on holiday to the US and I'll have the kid while I'm over there. Well, there you go. It's a US citizen. That's not really the American founding fathers weren't working in an environment where you had like global plane travel and anyone could come to America by jumping on a plane at the snap of the fingers and deliver a child there. So they probably didn't take that into account.
Yeah, there wasn't a billion people, impoverished people in, Latin America, like right at your doorstep either.
So, I mean, it's a reasonable thing to interrogate. And the great thing now is that it's on the table. So even if it is challenged, even if it's overturned, people are going to be debating it. People are going to be, if it's challenged, there'll be teams of lawyers and analysts and media people following the issue, working on it, thinking about what the next tactical steps are. It's an issue that's been made live now. And so it doesn't mean you're going to win, but it means there's a chance you will, and there's people working on it who are going to be being paid, right? When people start getting paid for stuff, then sort of teams and institutions and organizations develop around achieving a goal. And once those things are established, they sort of start gaining a momentum of their own. That's really why the left and this diversity stuff and the anti-racism stuff has sort of gone on so long. There's a whole lot of institutions that their existence is devoted to pushing things in the woke direction. And they've got donors and they've got money and they've got jobs. So they keep sort of manufacturing this stuff, even when there's not really a demand for it. But now that same dynamic's working in the other direction, I think this is helpful for us and the people who believe like we do. And so I think that's what's going to happen. It's in the arena and the push is on. And even if it is legally challenged and overturned, in time, I think more people are going to be working on it and they might be successful.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? I mean, with the other executive orders, like the ones ending any sort of DEI quotas and, even positions in federal government, which is, a great policy because these people get in basically as ideologues because they get in because of this, anti-white DEI, anti-white racism. So, of course, they're going to support that further in their career as they get entrenched to these institutions and get more of those sort of people in there. So it's good that
it's become, and across all our institutions, we've had this sort of downward spiral of it's sort of an ideological purity spiral in staffing. So all our academia, our media, our public sector bureaucracies across the Western world have become more and more left-wing. People with conservative views have become more and more locked out of those institutions. And I'm one of these people. I'm a policy wonk. I used to work in the government. I don't anymore, precisely for this reason. And my experience would be something that happens to a lot of people. It's not like sometimes you got a talking to for saying or suggesting policy ideas or writing things in your paper that were, against the woke stuff. But more often than not, what they do is they get to know that you're a right-wing guy, and then they just treat you like shit, and look you over for promotion, and do bad things until you you give up and you go and do something else. And that's what I did. And a lot of other people would be like that. And there's nothing you can really do. You can't really go to court over that. There's nothing you can really do about it. You've got really no recourse. And people might say, well, you need to harden up and stick it out. Well, I hardened up and stuck it out for like 15 years. But at a certain point, you just have to say, not only does it suck to be here because I'm being treated badly, but also I'm not actually making a difference. I'm not achieving, it's not worth my while to be here. I can't make a difference from within the system. I need to go and rethink and re-strategize and come at this from a different angle.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm working outside the government. I'm still doing public policy stuff. I'm commentating on it. I'm trying to bring about change. I'm doing it from a position of being outside the government. And I'm not the only person like this. There's a whole generation of disaffected conservative young men who have similar experiences, who are looking to build institutions outside the government to try and bring about change in this way. And a lot of those people are online. They're on social media, and they've been driving change from on social media. So that's what's happening.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as well, because, obviously, when we start building our own institutions, as these start to gain traction, like these parallel institutions, parallel societies, whatever you want to call them, just because we don't have the rot of, diversity politics in it, our institutions will be better in the, couple years down the line, because they'll be 10 times more efficient. So it'll be pretty good.
That's right. I mean, I wrote a article on the DEI thing recently. I don't know if we're going to talk about that at some point, but I mean, the colorblind meritocracy. In his inauguration speech, Trump talked about colorblind meritocracy being the new creed. We'll build a country based on the colorblind meritocracy. And what they're doing is they're really going after a lot of these executive orders and things that are put in that happened as a result of the Civil Rights Act in America and the Civil Rights Revolution. So that stuff came after Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King is famous for, treat people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin and whatever. But that's not what it was in practice. In practice, the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action and all the stuff that got put in did the opposite of that. It created a whole series of laws and institutions and bureaucracies.
Affirmative action, basically.
Yeah, that discriminated against, straight white males and elevated ethnic minorities and gays and women and all these other groups as a result. So it was the opposite. And so if we want to get back to real colorblind meritocracy, which I don't think is ultimately the best way of doing things, but it's certainly an improvement over wokeness. If we want to get back to that, it means undoing the civil rights, ultimately the Civil Rights Act, but the whole legacy of the Civil Rights Act that was enacted as a result of that line of thinking. That it's if they're really serious about that and they really do it, and it seems like they are, this is a whole new era. Because that stuff is implemented in America, but the same thing has been exported all over the Western world. Here in New Zealand, if you look at our human rights laws and things like that, our Human Rights Commission, the way they, in practice, apply the protection. So there's protections in law on the basis of race, sex, sexuality. You can't be discriminated against on those things. But the way they apply that in practice is all the minority groups and the gays, they get the protections, but the straight white males don't.
Yeah.
And so I just think that what it looks like is happening here. If they do this in America, they're going to get rid of that way of doing things, and it'll ripple out across the rest of the Western world, and we'll all start doing things that way. I think so.
Like as I was saying with parallel societies, if America starts purging these ideologues, leftist, liberal, communist ideologues from their institutions will be, again, 10 times more efficient than our ones. Their country will run better, which will automatically attract...
Our young straight white males are going to go over there.
Yeah, go there. That's the thing. So they'll go there,
It
So
creates an upward spiral, a competitive upward spiral, where like you have to kind of do everyone's going to have to do it in order to compete.
absolutely, as you sort of hope that happens as well. I mean, you do have this. I mean, we are going to talk about New Zealand politics. We're still sort of starting on Trump, but yeah, I mean, literally with the the treaty's principles bill and that sort of thing. Again, you got ACT going from trying to push it from a anti-white policy to a color-blind meritocracy, which is not exactly what we want, but it's a step in the right direction because at least then we're not openly discriminated against, like is what happening with DEI practices and leftist communism, where the white man and white people in general are discriminated against in favor of whatever protected status some minority has. So
I think I think in terms of all this talk, the big question is whether a lot of this stuff, this DEI and communist gay liberalism, is really going to be overturned. And I think at the outset, I mean, it's more like, okay, possibly, maybe, but it's not 100% certain. I think, a lot of the like TikTok ban where Mike Andreessen and Horowitz is going to own it instead, it's like, yeah, okay, again, these people are not really, they're kind of part of this little tech thing, which we don't really trust for obvious reasons. We've got work from home. Okay, that's something. We've got the Paris Climate Agreement withdrawal,
yeah,
which
is I
mean,
good stuff. I
that's
mean, they're not. I mean, New Zealand, our government's not doing any of these things. Like, so it's
mhm.
good to see Trump doing it.
It is. It's like, yeah, it's good. It's a good Paris Climate Agreement and the WHO. Like, yeah, this is good, right? But last term with Trump, we were we were out, and then with Biden, we were in again. And during the time we were in with the WHO and the Paris Climate Agreement, during the time we were in the WHO, I mean, Trump was still kind of walking hand in glove with the COVID guidance. He worked with the WHO during the pandemic. So even though we were out, I mean, there was still this. We were still kind of marching along with them, and we saw that the huge move that the globalists made against America and the whole world. I mean, that was so. I mean, it's again this. It's kind of like, hey, okay, well, what again? Like a lot of this stuff is quite. I'll play the heel in this analysis or my critique of the flurry of executive orders we've seen. I'll be quite critical. So I mean, there's that. Yeah, a lot of it. Like there's also the stuff with like the two gender stuff. There's only
Yeah, I
male
mean,
and
that's just like
female.
common sense stuff, right? Like,
It's like, woohoo! Like, oh, great! Like we two genders, male
yeah,
and female. Like we didn't know, and it's like it's like, okay, we're really starting from this point, are we? I mean, there's still the divorce. There's
well,
still the
unfortunately, we
diversity.
have to
There's
start
still
from this
the
point. It's so far gone.
there's
We had to start from this point, and it's a
there's
good.
still the
Yeah. Oh,
mhm.
sorry, you go.
Yeah. There's still the divorce. There's still the trannies. There's still the homosexual marriage.
Yeah.
There was, Caitlyn Jenner at Mar-a-Lago before the inauguration. So a lot of these things are like they're still quite surface level. They don't really get to the root or the heart of things, or they don't really integrally or structurally change things in the way that we need them to be changed. The truth is, we only have a very short amount of time with Trump, and a lot of these, whether you like it or not, the people around Trump and the left that still exists in its current form, they're all still, again, they're all still viciously against him, viciously. I mean, let's not forget what we have all gone through these past 8 or so years, the debanking, the censoring, the deplatforming, the savage attacks.
A
So
debanking
that,
law would be good because that should honestly just be
mm,
made illegal. But
mm,
yeah,
mm. So
uh,
a lot of it, I just don't really think really gets into the very, and it's like we don't have a lot of time. There's if he loses the House next term, which looks like it could be likely, that we're in gridlock, and
yeah. So you basically got
there
two
needs to be
years to get
pre-
these things like
yeah,
enshrined into law, while
1 to 2 years.
While Republicans have their pretty slim majority. So
That's right. It's precisely right. You've got to be serious and you've got to act fast. And we've got to, as nationalists, get away from all the touchy feely. emotionalism, like all this, a lot of this stuff, I'm afraid to say, is more on the side of being symbolic rather than actually mechanistically altering the machine, the system of, you know, how America works. Even when you get to the immigration, the real meaty stuff that we need, there is a nationwide deportation operation currently taking place, which is small scale.
Should we
right
play this?
now.
We have got
Yeah,
to play
go
this
ahead.
video.
Yeah,
This video is
let's
funny.
have some humor. Let's go.
Let's lighten things up a little bit.
You feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
You see that video, I'm curious, what do you think?
I'm not going back to Haiti.
Well, he's wrong. He's going back to Haiti. I can tell him that.
It'll be funny if they just put the quote there, going back to Haiti. He's going back to Haiti instead of whatever this is. But yeah, so you've got small scale sort of ICE raids. This one was in Boston where they arrested, you know, a dozen or so, you know, criminal illegal immigrants, which, you know, should have obviously been deported years ago. But again, it's, you know, small scale stuff. We needed the scale to go up by about, you know, times 10. So
No more eating cats and dogs for you, buddy.
Just mud cakes.
Yeah, back to mud cakes in Haiti.
Yeah, we went from mud cakes to cats and dogs, nibba. We doing it real. Don't send me back to Haiti, bro. Don't.
I like how he's like, you know, he went like
I
Biden
love
forever.
you, Obama.
It's like you had like Wakanda forever, now you got Biden forever. So
yeah, pretty much Biden is the leader of Wakanda. But yeah, anyways.
yeah.
like,
Anyways, well,
yeah,
I
got
mean,
Biden and
maybe there's an opening in Haiti. Maybe he can start his own kingdom there. But
probably. I mean, there's Jimmy Barbecue that, you know, doesn't just eat cats and dogs; he also eats people, which is, you know, that's like a Wagyu steak for us, I guess. It's like another
Yeah,
person.
well,
But,
I mean, I shouldn't laugh. That's actually pretty morbid. But anyways, so
it's
yeah,
kind of funny. Like, it's just so ridiculous that you'd eat another person for being a part of a different gang. That it is kind of, but yeah.
Well, anyways, he's going back to his ethno state. So
so the thing is that, you know, okay, so they're ramping up a nationwide deportation operation. Cartels are designated as terrorists now.
again, that's something that should have happened like 40 years ago. Like, that's ridiculous that that's not already the case.
They have like drones and like tanks now, and like weaponry from you know, China.
The problem is like Biden, the stuff that the Biden administration was doing was so insane. Like you've heard about the app that they had for illegal immigrants.
To literally just
made an app to make it easier for illegal immigrants to get in and to access services. They're giving out phones. They're paying for accommodation. They're flying them into the heartland. This stuff is so insane that sanity, by contrast.
Well, it's not insane. It was a political strategy, right? I mean, the strategy there was to import all these people. Harris gets in, and then she gives a like blanket amnesty, and then you've got, you know, 20 years of Democrat like one-party rule. So because they have this all new voter block, so it wasn't quite. It's not as insane as people think. There's a strategy there, but
you're right. I mean, it's like a very bad thing to do, but it makes sense if you don't have any moral qualms about like. You know,
well, they didn't. That's actually the thing.
I'm not saying, you're right. It's rational. It's rational, and
I mean, that's precisely what he was tasked with, Biden. I mean, he was a disciple of Armand Hammer, after all. So, declared a national emergency. And he's relaunching the building of the wall, which was like from 2020 to 21. But you know, so this is all like, okay, this is something like, yeah, we're gonna like shoot illegals who kill cops or whatever and other law enforcement, and you know, we've got a nationwide crackdown and all this kind of, again, it's sort of like it's nice, but it's not like, for me, what would really, you know, I'm glad to hear about the relaunching of the rebuilding of the wall. But you know, what we really need is something on H1B. Obviously, some assurances there, but also on catch and release. Something really needs to be done about the catch and release program.
Well, I think they're sending them back now. I think that's the policy now, from what I heard, is if they're over the border, they're caught basically like trespassing over the border. They're just sent back to Mexico like straight away. None of this like catch and release nonsense.
Yeah, I'm
Is
not
that-
aware.
is
I
that
don't know
right?
if has there been an executive order about that? Trump has talked about it anyway. He's talked about ending catch and release. So surely that
I think maybe that was part of his like declaring an invasion on the border, but I'm not exactly sure. But there should be one.
Yeah, because I haven't seen.
there's so many
Trump's-
executive orders that you can't like. It's too hard to go through and figure out everything he's done.
Yeah, well, he's done 33 so far.
I have the New York Post. Trump orders Border Patrol to immediately stop setting illegal migrants free in the U.S.
Yeah.
Catch and release is ended. That was of January the 21st. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether that is actually. I mean, it's an executive order, right? So, I
The
mean,
point I was kind of trying to make with that insane
Sorry.
thing is like,
Oh yeah.
the amount that what the Democrats are doing was so bad that even if Trump reverses a lot of it, like getting back like normal, he can do a lot of good stuff and it's still not enough. You know what I mean? So he can make, even if he does a lot of stuff that's good and reversing all that stuff, getting back to normal requires so much work that he can claim he's done a lot of good stuff without actually getting back to sort of normal.
Yeah, I
know,
got
like-
you. Well, unfortunately, a lot of Western countries are becoming like that. So
it's sort of turning into like a Brazil-like situation where you have like communist mafias everywhere, and they're all trying to like screw like would-be conservatives and try and bribe people. It's a pretty nasty situation. I mean, hopefully he can create some order. I mean, I think a lot of people have, while not defeated, I think a lot of this era has alerted a lot of people's psychological immune systems to the absolute decay and rot. That has been occurring over this zeitgeist, as Gimpsey might say.
yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
yeah, it's yeah. So I mean, it's good to whether this stuff will be implemented is another thing. I still think I'm not confident on the H1B thing. I mean, they got burned because of that. A lot of people gave them all a good spanking. Elon Musk got really butthurt and emotional over that.
oh, that's because didn't he come to America on a H1B or whatever, or was that a student visa? It was
Well,
something.
there's another visa. Like it's called I can't remember what it's called, like the O something visa for like,
O1B.
yeah, something like that, and that's for really like that's the genius visa or like the rocket scientist visa. H1B is people sell it as that, but it's not really.
Yeah,
like,
well, I
you
mean,
bring
some
in
of the
people-
things on there were literally like janitor or working at a 7-Eleven on the H1B.
data entry jobs, but they're selling it as like, well, we need these high skilled people to be competitive. But yeah, it's not
And
really
for
like,
some
they just want
reason-
cheap labor.
Yeah, and then for some reason, like Bernie Sanders is the only person calling this out in like the U.S. Senate, which I thought was odd. Like it.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're saying here is correct. Like Trump has said he wants more skilled immigrants, and he said that during the campaign. He said it, I think, since he's been elected. He's like he does want more skilled immigrants. It seems like he's pro the H1B thing. So I don't think that people like me, people like you guys are going to get exactly what we want from the Trump administration on that issue. But the big hope is that if Trump doesn't do that, it opens up a window for like the American left, like Bernie Sanders, to offer like a better package on immigration to people. And then that opens up options. You can sort of play them off against each other. Ultimately, that's what you want, I think, is that you want both parties. You want your ideas to be hegemonic. You want it to be unthinkable for either party to ethnically replace your people in your own nation, right? And so that should be the policy of both parties. Just like up till now, it's been the other way around. Like wokeness and mass immigration has been the policy of both the center left and center right. We need to flip that the other way around. And so I think there's a chance here if Bernie gains more prominence and speaks out about this issue. What we need to be, and when I say we, I mean like the online right or whatever, we need to be the sensible centrists, right?
Yeah.
We need to play these parties off against one another. And if the end of the Trump first term, he does a lot of good things on, rolling back DEI and wokeness and all this stuff, but it comes up against, like, let's say JD Vance is going up against Bernie Sanders in the next presidential election, and Bernie offers this package of like basically shutting down all immigration. That
moratorium.
would be moratorium. That would be something to consider very seriously, I think, for so-called online far right.
Extremists, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's I
Like
think
we have
that's-
this in New Zealand with Winston Peters. Like New Zealand First is a centrist party, right? It can go with the right or it can go with the left.
Yes.
That's what I think that the online right, the people who are against the Great Replacement.
Yeah, you don't have to be partisan.
We need to be that. We need to be in the middle and willing to. These ideas need to be hegemonic across both parties. We need to play the centre right and the centre left off against one another until they both do what we want.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And yeah, you're starting to see that as well. I mean, places like Germany, you've had the rise of this like new left-wing party that is, against
Well, there is a
migration.
populist left.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah,
Then
so
they-
you're starting to
yeah.
see that happen in Europe. I think that I don't know how well that party's doing. I think it's got mixed results, but yeah. So you're starting to see that. I mean, I wouldn't really trust them because these left-wing people have supported open borders for literal decades. Now all of a sudden they're saying they against them. So I would say be a bit skeptical, but at least they're like adopting the rhetoric, at least in some places. And I just thought it was funny that you saw Bernie Sanders of people talk about these like, the supposed far right, nationalist talking points when he's like the most left wing.
But he's been doing that for a while. He was doing that in 2016. Like Hillary Clinton rigged the election against Bernie to win that primary in 2016.
Yeah, and then Joe Biden did as well.
And he was talking about that stuff then, wasn't he? So
maybe I honestly don't remember.
This is not a new thing from Bernie Sanders. He's been saying, mass immigration is a Koch brothers proposal for like 10 years or more.
Yeah, so I mean, he's sort of right there. The Koch brothers are big supporters of it, as are a lot of these, PayPal mafia, as you saw with like Elon and whatnot. The support of the Great Replacement if it's done legally. I mean, I think we can make a deal with these people. It's like you can keep the H-1B visa or HB1, whatever they're called, visas, but it can only be people from like first world countries. So Europe, Australia, even New Zealand. So there you go.
Yeah, if you want to bring it there, legitimate genius tier people. Okay,
yeah.
Like bring them in, but you've got to assimilate them because you can't create like a foreign elite. Like that's already a problem in Western countries. We don't want an elite who have disproportionate power and influence in our countries, sort of ruling over us and having a set of interests, a set of ethnic and cultural interests that are distinct from the populations they're ruling over. Because that's already a problem. So there is a legit argument for bringing the geniuses in, but then you've really got to assimilate them and lock them down and make sure they're on the team.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is somewhat on the superfluous side. A lot of it is kind of fluff. We need something to really. I mean, it's nice to hear that you guys are kind of more optimistic on, politicians being perhaps potentially being harder on the immigration aspect of things. I think both parties honestly love their immigration so much.
Yeah, they do.
But I mean, it's difficult to say for me whether something like this will really eventuate unless we really, bring their butts to the fire and singe them if necessary. Just like Vivek Ramaswamy, there's rumors going around that he was ousted from Doge.
That's pretty funny if the first act of Doge was like firing the Indian guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like how the black character is always the first to, instead of it's with politics, it's like the Indian is always the first to get fired. But
hey, maybe what is it? Maybe Trump watched that Sam Hyde video or something. Where he was talking about Elon and
Sam Hyde fan. Yeah, good point. But yeah, I mean, what we really need is, we need structural deep change because a lot of this stuff goes deep, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think John Thune and Mike Johnson and Miriam Adelson with Silicon Valley and Little Tech or the Tech Bros,
PayPal mafia type stuff, yeah.
These groups of people really know Trump better than we know him. They know better what he's going to do than what we know. So it's got to be like, again, we don't have that long with Trump. We've got to get really aggressive, but really serious. I don't mean like become autistic and spurred out. I mean like become really aggressive with our demands because a lot of these are deep changes that need to be had. We don't have a lot of time. The country that America is turning into is sort of like a techno-libertarian, liberal kind of Silicon Valley funhouse with neocons in the mix, which is basically pure anti-nationalism. These people are liberals and effectively right-wing communists. Tasked with permanent revolution all over the world, be it in America's interest or not. Usually, the main thrust is it's not in America's interest; it's in some other country's interest. When we see that America, like most of the West, is being sliced up like a pie to the extent that foreign nations and foreign agents can subvert and redirect the American consciousness and American public officials and propaganda outlets to their own ends. So this is a serious consideration, and mentioning that, part of my concern, even though there was a freeze in all arms to countries, a 90-day freeze, disregarding Ukraine
I don't think it was
and
arms. I think it was
Israel.
foreign aid. I think
Foreign
like
aid,
yeah,
excuse
so
me.
arms are still getting shipped. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Oh, thank you. Thank you for correcting me there, Hector. Yeah. So it's aid, foreign aid. The thing is that yeah, I mean Trump, in the lead up to his inauguration, has been pretty good on Ukraine, at least. I thought, some of his rhetoric I thought was a little bit worrying. He was talking about peace is always better than war. And a friend of mine said if that were true, America's founders were wrong to sign the
Yeah.
Declaration of Independence. Yeah,
Yeah,
which,
that doesn't
which
make
is,
it literally doesn't make any sense, does it?
That's right. It was, in effect, a declaration of war against King George. So, I mean, if peace was always better than war, then we should have, rushed to make peace with, South Korea, or anyone else really. So, I mean, it's kind of. I'm not sure that this. I don't know how much this really colors the direction in terms of foreign policy. I'd imagine perhaps not so much, although there was Eric Prince, one of the people who were close to Trump, advising him, I think, in the wrong way in terms of Ukraine, at least. And I mean, I thought that was interesting because Trump does have, very propagandists of various kind of identities, various people around him who are trying to convince him one way or another in terms of his foreign policy. In fact, that's another thing that I would have liked to have seen is something that was more, what are we getting on?
Well, going into the
foreign
during the
policy?
campaign,
Yeah.
his foreign policy sort of agenda wasn't particularly clear. So
Trade, tariffs, anything.
oh yeah, there's nothing on that
for,
yet. But he says he's
yeah.
going to do that next week. So I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Well, we'll see. We'll
yeah.
see. Hopefully, it's more subsidized. And I mean, anything in terms of Israel, it's like
nothing
it's
really
supposed.
there yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of throwing munitions and arms and supplies into effectively what is a black hole of very little, I would argue, geostrategic advantage when you have Ukraine, which is tightly tethered to Taiwan and China's mobilization in the South Pacific. So it's kind of like, well, what are we really doing here? I think Israel can handle itself. We need to send whatever we would have, or whatever we would have sent to Israel. We should be sending that to Ukraine.
Well, with Israel, I mean, they've effectively already won the military battle. It's just there's basically no plan going forward of what they're going to do with Gaza. So
yeah, I'm thinking about that meme of like it's got like the rockets being launched into Israel and Israel launching its rockets back, and the writing says my tax dollars, and then for other rockets, like somehow also my tax dollars.
Yeah.
And then also they're funding the aid and the reconstruction and the rebuilding for both sides as well.
God.
So it's I mean the American taxpayer is just getting, you're right, they're just pouring money into a complete black hole there. But what I was going to say on the if they're serious about rolling back DEI and all this stuff, I think you're right. We need to have long-term structural deep change, right? But if and that means a march through the institutions back the other way and taking control of them. And if they're serious about rolling, if they really roll back the DEI, if they really do the colorblind meritocracy, then that provides a window an opening for some of our people to get into those institutions and sort of reshape the ideological the ideology within them to be something more sensible and more in line with our goals. So like that, and that's that's what needs to happen, and there's an opportunity now for it to happen, and that's how you get long-term structural changes. You get that your people in the institutions, and you get their way of thinking shaping the way those institutions work.
Absolutely.
Basically,
So
you
a
just
lot
have
of
to
work
do
to
Project
and it takes a lot of
2025.
time.
Yeah, William is right. William's exactly correct, and that's what we should. If you get anything out of any of our streams together, well, listen to what William just said. He's 2000% correct. If you get anything from our streams to the audience listening or replay gang, it's that you need to actually, yeah, there needs to be a flow or a mad rush, really, especially in terms of America, a mad rush to get into these institutions, into these positions where you can actually make the change yourself and actually carry out these changes. So, I mean, I'd like to see New Zealand have its own version of Project 2025. I don't know where the Project 2025 people are sitting in the water currently, but I hope they're going to be brought back in to this fight, because right now there has to be an absolute mad rush into the government to just completely. There just needs to be an absolute onslaught, an absolute assault, because that's none of these people in the upper hierarchy, upper echelons of government. I mean, these are the enemies. These are not our friends. You know, people trying to make. What was that guy? They were trying to make memes of an old neocon senator, like drinking glasses of water. Oh, he's so based. He drank a glass of water in Congress. It's all kind of like, and it's just the same kind of thing. Like it's all kind of like it. But anyway, like
the Long March through the institutions was a multi-decade-long leftist project, which was ultimately successful. So it took them a long amount of time to get all their people in place and reshape these institutions to bring about the societal changes they were hoping for. It might take us a while to do the same thing back. Now, we would like to do it more quickly because we've got mass immigration going on, and the longer we leave things, the worse things get, and the less recoverable the situation becomes. But you just have to put your head down and get into it and do the work and work your way up through these institutions. There's no easy way around it. That's what the leftists themselves figured out. Like, they were full of beans after the 1960s. They had lots of things going on. They thought everything was going their way, but they got shut down. That you had like the Weather Underground doing these terrorist things, and what they settled down on the solution being the long, hard, this process of this long march through the institutions being the way to solve their problems. And that's what they did, and it took them a long time. They pulled it off, and that's what we need to undo. It was in hindsight,
we sort of have to do it the opposite way, because the leftists did it by taking over like academia and then various like bureaucracies, and then start to influence the government.
The Curtis Yarvin approach is just just sort of fire them all at once, or just
you basically do McCarthyism, but do it like for real.
Whatever works.
McCarthy
Yeah,
is
that's a
who I
good
was
point.
searching for. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice.
In hindsight, he's going to be remembered. Like, he's demonized now, right? But he was right about everything.
Well, that's the thing. People always brag on McCarthyism, but it's like, what was he actually wrong about?
He was 100% correct.
Yeah.
Literally, everyone was like a gay.
The problem is he confronted people with the difficult choice that in order to protect, we're going to have to violate these liberal norms and keep these people out of these positions, and in order to preserve our society the way we like it, we have to abridge our freedoms in order to protect them, type of thing.
We all need to become McCarthy. Yeah.
And people didn't want to do that, and the result is can we even do it if we want to?
Yeah.
We've sort of lost control of our own societies as a result of rejecting the McCarthyist solution. But anyway, there's an opportunity here. There's an opening here to sort of get back at least something, and we just have to sort of work as hard as we can, both inside working through these institutions. And I think this other thing that sort of I'm kind of doing, building building our own institutions on the outside of government, because that's something the left has too. They have all these non-profit organizations, these lobbying groups supported by these billionaires and these huge donors. But a lot of their people, like if you're a young leftist, you go out and you do these insane protests and you go to jail, and it doesn't matter. They hire you into these lobbying organizations. You've got a good job at the end of it. We need a pipeline like that for right-wing people. If right-wing people engage in right-wing protests, there needs to be a backdoor employment option into sort of right-wing institutions, into right-wing media, into these organizations for those people. So there's a place so they can use them and they can still be involved. And
some countries have that, like in Italy, those sort of things, these parallel institutions like do exist to a degree. So you're allowed to actually be right-wing there. So
one of the good things that I will say, and that's good to hear that I didn't realize that was going on in Italy. And there is stuff happening. I talk to certain people across the world, and there is stuff going on that maybe I'll mention at some point. But one of the things in regards to what you guys are talking about is, I think one good thing we do have amongst the morass of problems is there's a lot of momentum going our way. So even though it took the left their long decadal march through the institutions, we, by contrast, there's been such a shock to the system.
Well, leftism was never really popular. That's why it took him so long. So
because it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, who finds any of this stuff attractive or appealing, or just?
I guess that's a really good observation. What they were trying to impose an unpopular ideology on people who didn't want it. We're just trying to put things back to normal. So like there's an advantage there. Maybe we can do it more quickly.
I think we can, absolutely. But
there's certainly some momentum there. If we just take the opportunities, and if we just educate people and know, take every opportunity and know exactly what to do, by being strategic, being laser focused on what needs to be done, and getting everybody involved, then I think we can do a lot quicker what took them several decades to achieve. But obviously for us it will be the rebuilding of what was lost, of what was destroyed. So it exists in people's minds. The desire is there. We just need to fulfill that desire by providing people the route to be able to achieve that. So it's a very cold sort of, this is not what people like to hear, right? People like to see Trump drinking one of those mini Coke bottles and eating a cheeseburger, and that gets people wild, or something like that, or RFK, I don't know, talking about seed oils. But I mean, it's like with a squeaky voice, or maybe not squeaky voice. That'd be funny if he had a squeaky voice. But by contrast, what we really need to do is we need people to actually really know and understand what it is they're doing, because I get the feeling that a lot of people are kind of just swimming in the dark, not really knowing which way to go, and they're hyped up that there's, they want the change. They're hyped up for that change, to see a grand nationwide restoration, but unless the correct outlets are provided to them, we're not going to be able to use that momentum properly, or to an optimum level that will make things faster, make us achieve things faster rather than, sooner rather than later, right? So this is kind of what we need to think pragmatically about these things,
of course,
and not just treat it like a Mariah Carey concert or something.
I think morale is another point. Like,
morale's high for us.
One of the things that Trump has been good for is just boosting people's morale. And if you give, people don't like to think that they're so wussy that they can sort of be demoralized and then not speak the truth about things or not stand up for themselves. But basically that is what has happened. Like, leftist power that works in this sort of passive aggressive way that beats people down and makes them not say
it's
what
not
they
even
really
that passive
think,
a lot of the time, to be fair,
and not stick up for themselves. Yeah, but for some people who resist initially are openly punished, but for most people, most of the time, it's just this constant nagging away. Oh, you can't really say that, can you?
That's a really great point.
And,
I get you.
And this is Trump sort of reversed that. If anything, the idea of anti-fragility. Like Trump has shown that it's kind of cool just to defy this and just to tell these people, to fuck off, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's
Absolutely.
made that acceptable and even kind of cool. We have a word for it now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, based. It's based. Or like...
Yeah. Well, the perfect example to tack on to what William was saying is that, I mean, look at what just happened as a perfect example. Now, I don't like Elon Musk. I'm very suspicious of the guy. I think he's the enemy. But I mean, he, a true wolf in sheep's clothing. But he, look, with the supposed Nazi salute. I personally don't think that was a Roman salute. Me personally,
it wasn't really. I mean, unless it was like an actual like Roman salute, which they sort of did that, but
yeah.
it wasn't like
But
the
I mean,
Roman
I
salute
think
as
he
the
knew
modern
what he
one.
was doing. I think he was.
You think he did?
I think
really?
he was deliberately kind of I think he knew that would be perceived that way, and he was deliberately doing it.
Okay, possibly. Yeah, I can see that. I think that's probably a good take. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I've done stuff like that before myself, and I don't know if it's because like I shave my head too closely in the summer, and I like said goodbye to my friends. That people.
I mean,
sort
yeah.
of
I mean,
along that.
it's sort of funny to do that. So
Yeah, yeah. So, and it's kind of funny, but like some people like they'll look at that but I mean, I can sort of see how you would put your hand if you're all pumped up. You put your hand on your chest and you just like go like see ya. Like I can kind of, but yeah, like yeah, but like let's say if it was like as William said, like he knew what he was doing. He was stirring the pot just to be a troll, just to be a lolcow, and like. Yeah, I mean, it's like what William was saying. Like, it's people. I think like that's how like a lot of this liberal stuff. It's losing some of its pillars or
When
some
you
Yeah.
legs
compare
that held it up.
the response,
the
so
response.
it's the same thing Richard Spencer did after Trump won in 2016, right? And
Mm.
when Richard Spencer did it, that was a huge sort of oh no, he's done that. People were going to think we're Nazis now. This is all
That's
terrible.
like,
But when
cry about it.
Elon does it, like it doesn't, like it didn't have the same impact. Like
Water off a duck's butt.
Yeah, it's like, who cares? Just cry
we've all
about
been
it.
called, we've all been called racist. We've all been called Nazis. Whatever.
It's like a thing of pride. People are like, "Oh, I'm a Nazi. Well, I guess that means I'm a cool guy," or something like that.
Yeah, like it's almost people are going to start doing this deliberately. Like, so what? What do you care, you stupid leftists? I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
Like this is.
I mean, it already does. It does happen already. So there you go.
Yeah. But the reason I said that is just to illustrate that they're losing cultural power here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's the thing.
There you go. Perfect example.
Well, yeah, again, with the institutions, when the leftists control the media, the thing is only like 30% of the people now use the media, like the mainstream media or something like that. So the just that like pillar of that they've had to let go just because of changing circumstances of mass media. Yeah,
Well, that's a main thing. That's probably one of the main ways leftism has been able to project power into the culture. It's just to control the media. They portray their weird communist bullshit as normal and make people think that a lot of other people believe this when really they don't. It's like an illusion. A sort of Orwellian optical illusion they've been able to maintain. And now that the people are just not watching them, they're getting the news from elsewhere, they're seeing all these other people online who have these right-wing beliefs. People are thinking, well, this sort of this left-wing consensus, this woke consensus that they've tried to make us believe really exists. It doesn't really exist. It's a figment of it's a mirage that they've created, and we don't have to go along with that anymore.
Of course, the concern is that we'll get effectively another woke situation through the potential DEI that Sirium, Krishnan, and Musk and Remus, I guess not him anymore, but a lot of these people will promote. And then that, alongside with the Supreme Court justices, Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh, and people like this, they'll just, and Mike Johnson, these people are just like, they don't care. They'll just allow for this kind of stuff to go through, as they have done for most of their careers. I mean, these people are, especially Amy Coney Barrett, is a wacky woman.
Yeah, I don't know why she was. It seems bizarre that she was picked, but whatever. It's like it is what it is.
Retarded. So I think there's the potential for more in terms of what really matters, there certainly is the potential for more Tajiks, and probably we'll see if there are more Mexicans. I just need to see more before I can actually say like, yes, we're definitively getting this. But
Yeah.
something that's
Well,
a
it's
big
early days.
concern.
That's true.
Something that's a big concern about that I don't think is probably talked enough, and kind of in a way fair enough. People aren't really technologically or aware of these developments perhaps, but the AI with a lot of what these intergovernmental organizations and super rich figureheads like Ellison um, and other and people in Trump's cabinet themselves. This is a big cause for concern. We don't. We probably can't even really comprehend how this is exactly going to be used to manipulate the future, or what kind of challenge this will present to us as nationalists. Because I don't know if people saw, but the new NVIDIA, basically it's just like a super AI brain hard drive that you chuck into your laptop or computer. And I mean, this is so revolutionary that it's amazing that it's not talked about more. But this could be such a big deal. I mean, it could completely revolutionize how we use technology, if all the hype is actually correct. And that's just something to bear in mind, that technology is, especially with AI, and the rate at which it's developing is, well, look, it's something to be aware of. And what Jensen Huang did, and how AI is developing is this could be like a new epoch, really, of mankind. I'm not really sure how
Yeah.
exactly we contend with it.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a new epoch in terms of efficiency, and because AI is going to be replacing. Well, it
Yeah.
already is all these types of workers. So there's a lot of like questions there that need to be answered that Trump isn't really providing the solution to yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But
Yeah.
It'll be interesting because they've been training all the AI to put wokeness into
yeah,
the
no,
AI.
I was about to say that, especially Sam.
So
Sam, what's his name? Sam Altman.
is that going to continue now? I wonder. Like,
yeah, it's like you can't
it's
like
something to
the
look out
AI
for.
like breaks if you try to get it to say the
Presumably,
N-word.
like the non-woke AI is going to result in more efficient outcomes than the woke AI. So I mean, it seems like wokeness is just wokeness can only work if you basically control everything. As soon as there's a competitor from the outside who is established that is non-woke, it drives a spiral against wokeness, because you have to compete, you have to be anti-woke as well.
William he endorses turning ChatGPT into Tay 2.0. Everybody, go and get it. Go on it and just flood ChatGPT with no, we don't want that. I'm just joking, just kidding. But you got to say Tay 2.0 was pretty fun. But anyway.
So yeah, you basically got like AI social credit, which is basically what they already have in China. So
yeah. Well, yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, Trump is, there is huge attempts like BlackRock changing people's behaviors. You have to force behaviors, as Larry Fink said.
yes.
You also have billionaire Larry Ellison saying a vast AI-fueled surveillance system can ensure citizens will be on their best behavior. Ooh, what does that mean? So it's almost like and I mean, this is real, folks. I mean, you have the other link up there, Hector, where Trump that is going to incorporate that into Project Stargate, a $500 billion plan to ensure the I believe that is the Space Force, intimately connected with Space Force and achieving celestial dominance, military space dominance. So this AI stuff is really, they're very serious about this stuff. The potential of this stuff is huge.
This is actually probably like the most concerning thing that he's done, is working with Larry Ellison and Sam Altman, to be fair.
Yeah, right. I mean, these are very shifty dudes, and there's a lot of these people around him. So it's, again, it's you need to consider that the way technology and therefore society is taking shape. Much of what has happened is due to the technology. So that, I mean, be prepared for this. Put your thinking caps on, everybody. If there's any time to be a philosopher or a detective, it's now. And I mean, yeah, I mean, so I mean, because one thing's for certain, they
what
are.
this is in service of, this
in-
is in service of this idea of managerialism, right? So this is the way power is effectively wielded in modern societies, is through managerial hierarchies. And what you do is you have an outcome you want to achieve, and you try and manipulate the people you're managing into doing the thing you want them to do. And you do
Yes.
that. You can do that. There's this is what this nudge philosophy is all about. You've heard that's what Cass Sunstein, who was Obama's sort of economic advisor or something, we used to talk about. And this was a lot of the thing behind the COVID pandemic as well. They wanted to nudge people into behaving the way the government wanted them to, without outright making it illegal not to. And so they talk about choice infrastructure, right? Choice architecture, sorry. And the idea is, if you can control the sort of the incentives and everything surrounding the person, you can make him, and you can do that enough and control the incentives, you can make him do what you want without actually legally compelling him. So, and the problem here is, like, people formally, legally are free, right? But in a practical sense, if you've got AI and you've got a social credit system and you've got this managerial that's controlling everything about this person, they can be formally, legally free, but in practical terms, they're going to do exactly what the people in charge want them to do. And so that's a huge threat to human freedom and human agency. It's ultimately extremely dehumanizing if people don't have. It's not enough just to have legal freedom. You have to have actual freedom. You have to actually be able to choose to do things that the people in charge don't want you to do. There has to be a range of choices available to you that are actually choosable. And this combination of managerial philosophy working in our governments and in our businesses, along with AI, it has the potential just to really take away people's ability to choose how they live their lives for themselves in a practical sense. So it's a tremendous threat to freedom. Something
the whole question of what it means to be human is in question, as we've gone through a constant revolution or evolution of how we interact with our world, how we interact with our inner world as ourselves as human beings, with the constant iterations of technological advancements that are encroach on our everyday lives in various forms. You know, the TV, the smartphone, the shower, or what have you, Uber Eats. So I mean, yeah, it's
this is the Unabomber's point. Like, what's his name?
Ted Kaczynski.
Kaczynski, right? He said, like, his idea. He's got lots of ideas, but like he's saying, if technology changes the background system against which people are evolving, right? So rather than people evolving to survive and thrive within the context of nature, if in an industrial or post-industrial technological society, people are evolving to get along in a sort of a technologically augmented environment, and it changes the course of human evolution.
That's right.
No one, and we like, ever since the Industrial Revolution, I don't know if the people in charge are really thinking about this. They're not thinking about the way in which technology is changing the course of human evolution.
And human consciousness, I think, even bigger.
Yeah, that's
human
right.
Consciousness, that's very scary to me.
Ted's solution to that was just to blow up everyone involved in technological change and go and live in the bush. So it might not be exactly the right solution, but
sounds like the Kiwi way. No,
the problem he's identified there is a real one that is worth considering.
Yeah,
seriously.
it's interesting with AI. Someone in chat brought it up. It's sort of interesting that the jobs that AI are taking are all the jobs that you go to university for, like anything to do with a computer, like graphic design, media management, maybe even accounting, translating. So it's all these skilled professions that the computers are starting to do. Like,
Mm.
who would hire a translator anymore when you can just get, you
Yeah.
know, 11 labs to translate literal movies for you? It's
all
crazy.
the more importance in terms of achieving these managerial positions before that actually does take place, being a part of the people who actually influence and are the decision makers and world shakers of how this AI runs, because ultimately it's going to be in the hands of the people who control the off switch or the on switch to AI.
Yes.
That's ultimately it's not necessarily the AI itself, but the people who control it, and that's the big question. And the other big question is, what is going to be real anymore? What will be real? I mean, we saw Will Smith eating some spaghetti. This technology isn't that old, really. I mean, imagine 5 years down the track. I mean, and with this new NVIDIA release by Jensen Huang,
Yeah.
it's pretty. It's actually it's a big deal. I mean, if you want a motivating sort of piece of art to sort of help understand how serious this situation is, if I'm not really pulling on your heartstrings or not putting your mind into red alert mode, I highly recommend you take a thoughtful person, maybe a friend or a family, someone who you can have good conversations with, and watch Blade Runner 2. That
Yeah.
is ultimately the trajectory that I believe will be led into if people like Elon Musk and Syrian Krishnan and all these sycophants like Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh and Mike Johnson. This is the reality that we will possibly very soon be led straight into, and this is a very real thing, and it's a very serious thing. And I just wish it was met with the due seriousness and interest by other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal, and we in regards to this, we've got the political side of things, but this technological side of things presents a whole new wall of a challenge for us to kind of get over. So again, I think one observation, how are we putting ourselves into the managerial positions? Like what you say is correct, Hector. A lot of these, knowledge, I guess, based professions, white collar professions will be very heavily in question. But we still need to ensure that people are as close as they can be at the helm of these managerial professions as they can be, to avoid, and there are good people out there who I know people who prioritize, human beings over AI in their business. So it's we this is one sort of solution, one sort of way we can perhaps circumvent a lot of the damage that can be done with the technology.
Yeah, well, it's the same as like, you can't outsource everything to an AI. Like, you can't outsource everything to like a man in India for $2 an hour. Like, obviously, some things are always going to have to be done by people, but there are literally going to be industries that are going to be decimated, and I think the big ones are, translations, because AI can translate anything to any language. So why even bother trying to become a translator anymore? Or other stuff like copywriting, graphic design, all that sort of things. Like, who's going to pay someone to make a logo for you when you get an AI to make like 1,000 of them, and then you just pick the best one?
Oh, mate, you just get your Neuralink installed in your brain.
Yeah. But anyways,
Yeah.
I want to go to a positive one again. As far as I can tell, this one pretty much has no downsides. So Trump pardoned all the Jan 6s. Promise made, promise kept. It's actually really good.
That's probably the best thing. That was the thing that took me by the most
Yeah, because
surprise.
I was sort of worried because there was some rhetoric coming out of like some Republicans like, oh, maybe we'll just pardon some of them or blah, blah, blah. But he pardoned nearly all of them. The only ones that weren't were a couple other ones. And, not all of them were full pardons. Like, if you assaulted a cop, you basically just got like time served. So some of them weren't full pardons, but pretty much everyone that was in prison for, the January 6th protests, walking around the White House with cops showing you around, that sort of thing. They're all pretty much out.
A lot of these people have been in prison for quite a long
Like
time.
years. Like some of these people, like people that just
Ridiculous.
walked around, were like in
So
prison
it's
for
not
3
exactly
years.
as if they're all getting off scot-free. I mean, they've
Yeah,
lost
4 years of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years for assaulting a cop. I mean, that's sort of fair enough, I think. So,
but most of these people didn't assault.
no, I mean, like only a couple dozen of them did. While some people were in prison for sedition or whatever. I mean, I'm not I'm not going to endorse the Proud Boys, but like the leader of the Proud Boys, they got 22 years to a life sentence for supposedly trying to
Goodness.
overthrow the U.S. government when he like wasn't even there. Like
It
that was
was
just
It's probably a
obviously,
joke, like we've all seen the video, right? Of like they opened the doors for them.
Yeah,
They were kind
exactly.
of showing them around in there. There were people just walking around taking photos, like boomers on boomer tourists, really. Like so.
Yeah.
I mean, Baked
The idea
Alaska
that
went
you would
into
go to
Pelosi's
jail for that
office.
just seems quite retarded.
Boomer tourism is illegal. Land free.
So, yeah, I mean, the vast majority of these people like didn't do anything except walk around, and even if they
Mm.
did do more than that, it's like 3 and 4 years in prison.
Well, look at the
Having your
BLM
life
riots.
upturned.
The
Yeah.
shaman, the Trump shaman, whatever his name is,
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, he got
Yeah.
like what 8 years for because he picked up the podium or something or went to the podium. It's like he didn't really do anything other than just like move some furniture around.
Yeah, he was really destroying the nation.
But the problem is this sort of occupation of government buildings. Like the left-wing people do this all the time.
They do it all. Yeah, literally. Like there was some happening like a week ago because some state like
the
Minnesota.
Palestinian protesters occupied the U.S. government Capitol building like within the last few years. I distinctly remember that. And a lot of the state government Capitol buildings were occupied by Black Lives Matter protesters and
all sorts of things,
Palestinian people and
anti-abortion,
all
Roe
sorts
v.
of
Wade type things.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Yeah.
oh, pro-abortion, not anti-abortion. These leftists would be, but
the response was even more interesting. That a lot of the elites didn't do anything until the Palestine protests were happening on the campuses, and they were literally getting beaten with metal batons. And then all of a sudden, a lot of elites were
Yeah.
saying, "Oh my goodness! I just realized how important it was to be a conservative, and that this woke nonsense has gone
Yeah,
too
even
far."
though it's been
like,
going
really,
on
it
for
took all that.
it's
Took
been going on for a
BLM.
century. It's
Yeah.
suddenly too far now. So
Suddenly, yeah, all the and
But
all
I
those
mean, that's an
videos.
interesting point, though. Like the fact that the left went so hard on the Palestinian stuff really, I think, made some of the elites really consider whether there's a future with them on the left. And like, I think Trump did do better amongst the Jewish vote, I think, in general. And there are like, wealthy Jewish people backing the Trump campaign. So he's really managed to that sort of demographic, that group, a relatively powerful group in America. I don't think he's won a majority of them over.
no, he didn't win a majority. I mean,
he's won enough of them over to
a lot of billionaires too.
make it for it to be taken seriously. Like it's in play now. Like which way that demographic is going to go, and it matters because they've got a lot of social power. So.
That's right. Yeah. So this is kind of it's important to view these political and cultural bodies of movement that kind of shift around. Just tell me when you've got it, Hector.
I'm trying to find the demographic, like the CNN exit poll that has like the demographics by race and all that sort of thing. Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
William and I will just keep talking. Just tell us when you got it.
So,
oh yeah, you got it. Okay.
So I mean, Trump pretty much did better with everyone. I mean, it makes sense. So, where's race? Okay, he doesn't have Jewish, but he did like extremely like this is the best like Republicans have done with Hispanics in like 50 years. He did really well.
Just like he won like 46% of Latinos. So
like majority of Latino men. So if it was just the men voting,
the election pitch was, I'm going to send these people back, biggest deportations in history, and they said, okay, great, I'm voting for that.
So here we go, Jewish. I mean, it's still pretty low.
The whole Republican narrative up until then that you have to take deportations and the immigration issue off the table to win Latinos or Hispanics. That's just been completely exploded by that election result from Trump.
It turns out Hispanics also care about like economic issues that affect everyone. So who would have thought?
They hate the illegal immigration as much as anyone.
Hey, get the fuck out of Texas, Holmes, you taco bender. Get the fuck out.
Anyway.
What are you doing?
Well, we can look at the swings again. We sort of did that on the election day stream, but literally all the Hispanic areas.
It's still quite low, 22%, but it'd be good to compare that with previous elections. I get the feeling that that's higher, but
it's still pretty low. I think it might be about the same, really. Because Jewish, people that are Jewish tend to be extremely progressive in terms of like, I guess you'd say, culture issues like abortion, LGBT, that sort of thing. So it makes sense that a lot of them do vote for Democrat, at least in the US.
But then all of a sudden there was a flip. People who had been vociferously against Trump for years, like really at his throat, all of a sudden, come these Palestine protests, there was a big shift, and that I just and a lot of them didn't kind of go willingly. There seemed to be a group shift, as a group to Trump's camp, to supporting him, as tentative as it may have been. So so they sort of they were supporting him, but at the same time they've got to keep him on a leash and ensure he doesn't inspire too much nationalist sentiment amongst Americans. But it'll be interesting to see how it actually pans out, because there's still a huge amount of influence in Trump's administration from this sort of group, and from a lot of the groups actually adjacent to this power base. So it'll be that they have made concessions to a degree, but again, and that's why I don't think these, because of these concessions, I don't think we're seeing exactly what we'd like to see. So this is sort of the thing.
I mean, it's Trump. We were never going to see exactly what we wanted to see. So,
Mm.
but I mean, what we're seeing so far, I mean, I honestly think it's exceeded my expectations. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's me as well. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess I'm just a frumpy kind of.
Well, I mean,
bad
it's
person.
early days. I mean,
you need it's good to have the negative, not negative's not the right word, but you know what I mean. It's good to have that voice as well, because you need to always be keep your feet to the, whatever the right metaphor is, I don't know, but you keep you honest and keep you pushing for more, and make sure you're still engaged and watching closely, and making sure you're pushing for as much as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the ultimate, direction we need to take it. We need to make sure we're going toward, Western white Christian civilization, not this techno-libertarian, liberal Marxist trash hellhole that, again, watch Blade Runner 2. This is what Elon Musk wants, and what Syrian Christian. This is the kind of world you'll see. If you watch Blade Runner 2, it's just like a visual handbook of what they're trying to do. I mean, it's really a brilliant film, but it's freaky. It's like a horror, really.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I saw that
been
in
a
cinemas.
subtle shift. Like the first Trump term, I think, was more like focus was on
tax cuts.
Globalism versus nationalism is what Trump talked about. This time, it's more subtly on like a wokeness versus anti-wokeness, and I think that's not necessarily the same thing. Like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are kind of globalists.
That's right. Yeah, no, they absolutely are. They're not. But so that means they're globalists. You've got neocons, you've got techno-libertarian liberals, and all these types. And so these effectively are anti-nationalism. They're not pro. They're the opposite of what we want. They're not going to achieve what we want. They're going along with something completely different, and that's what we have to fight back against. And we have to be really resolute and clear about that, and really make these deep structural changes by being pragmatic. And there's no substitute for political strategy and acumen and political personnel. There's no substitute with that. You can get as excited as you want about stuff, about RFK suggesting we cook beef and fries in beef tallow, and drill for more oil, and use cane sugar. But ultimately, it's political strategy, being pragmatic, and personnel, and they're working hand in glove with our leader Trump. And unless we need to make sure that we're getting, as I say, towards a Western white Christian outcome. But as it's currently progressing, we're not. I don't believe we're heading in that direction because of aforementioned reasons. So we've got to realize that these are not Trump's. They're not our people, and they've got our leader captive. And that's the way I don't know if I blame Trump, because he is surrounded by a mafia. So that's very, until you can say you can do better than Trump, surround yourself with the same mafia that's as serious. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
All political coalitions have parties with slightly different, ideologies and values and interests. And this is the coalition that was able to be pieced together and was able to win and beat the Democrats, the Democrats are a formidable political machine.
Yes.
But in order to do that, there's, the group that's been put together, there's divergent interests. So there's going to have to be compromises. And I don't think any one faction there is going to get exactly what they want. But it's just politics.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think the Democrats are. I don't think we've quite overturned a lot of this. I think
no, of
there
course.
still is a very deep. I mean, as we identified, the enemies are all around. This is far from the death nail and the coffin for sort of wokeness or effectively what is communism. So
Hector, you want remarkably
to
quiet. Like in response to the first Trump victory, there's all this wailing and gnashing of teeth, and you had the resistance, and they're going to fight back and all this stuff. This time they're just sort of quiet,
they're essentially leaderless.
Well, they realize they have to.
It feels like psychologically they feel like maybe they're defeated, or maybe they just don't know what to say anymore. I think they sort of understand, if not openly understand it, if not consciously understand it, like on some sort of subconscious level, they understand that their fervent pushing of the woke stuff is actually working against them and turning people against them. And so rather than doubling down, they're going to have to think of a new kind of strategy.
That's right.
Yeah, they probably will.
Right.
I mean, they'll
that's what
morph.
they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. They're going about it another way. Sorry, Hector, go ahead.
I'm just saying that's exactly what we're doing. Like we're seeing with, they might go to more like a Bernie Sanders type thing, where they'll probably keep a lot of the woke stuff, but like some of the more like crazy stuff in there will probably be taken out. A lot of the open borders stuff they'll probably walk away from. So I think they're probably going to like take it. Maybe it depends. There's a lot of factions again. There's a lot of factions in the Republican Party. There's a lot of factions in the Democrat Party. But yeah, sort of adopting more Bernie Sanders basically ideology, and I think that's probably is what they're going to do. But maybe they will, maybe they won't. Also, did we want to talk about New Zealand stuff? We've been talking about Trump for an hour, 20 minutes, so maybe we should cover some of the New Zealand stuff briefly, because I know you're busy. I guess what everyone's been talking about, over the last couple of months has been the Treaty Principles Bill. Again, it's pushed by ACT, and, Luxon just keeps, he's like, no, we're not going to vote for it. We're not going to vote for it. It just makes him look really weak, especially when you compare it to like Trump, who's doing all these things against like DEI and getting rid of like diversity quotas from the federal government. And you have Luxon pretty much refusing, well, not quite the same, but on a similar level, like refusing to have anything to do with it. Just keep things going exactly the way they were under Labor.
Yeah, this is the thing. That's the exact same stuff that's happening. Go ahead, William.
I was just going to say, I put in a submission on this bill. I agree with a lot of the critique of the treaty principles been blown. The extrapolation in terms of what they mean has been dishonest, and it's gotten out of hand. Like you've got the Waitangi Tribunal and the public servants and the judges and the academics all saying the treaty principles mean all this stuff. It doesn't really.
Yeah.
And that's been used as the pretext for rolling out unpopular things like co-governance and Mary wards and all this stuff. But if I look at and I think it's good to have a national conversation about it because the public's been shut out. So that's all positive. But when I look at so there's two approaches being taken within the government to this issue. And the one is the New Zealand First approach, which is just deleting references to the principles in legislation. So I support that.
That's logical, yeah.
The Treaty Principles Bill, what I worry about here is like, when I read the principles that are put into that bill, it looks to me like what ACT and David Seymour are trying to do there is they're trying to put like liberal individualist globalism. They're trying to say the treaty means that, right?
Well, I mean, you just have to listen. Did you listen to his State of the Nation? He like basically just like talked about like, oh yeah, New Zealand, like anyone that comes here is a New Zealander now. All these people all over the world come here to make us New Zealand their new home.
That's the Hobson's Pledge stuff that they're putting out. Like we're all New Zealanders. Well, I mean, I I don't think that, you know, an Indian person who just
crazy.
jumped off the plane is just as Kiwi as me. And I think that
It was
the
sort of funny because in the
idea-
same speech he's literally talking about like Marxism, and then he like talks about like open borders and how everyone's the same and like we're all interchangeable.
it's all part of the same sort of Marxist subversion tactics, and like
Yeah.
they're for that, they're for the open border stuff, but he's against wokeness now. But he was for the tranny stuff in the campaign, and he changed his mind. Like he's not, like David Seymour is not consistent on his opposition to
His speech wasn't
wokeness and stuff
consistent.
like-
If you just watch his State of the Nation, it's 40 minutes long, but he talks about stuff like the housing crisis, and he starts talking about how like he just refuses to talk about migration and how he's actually pro-migration because we need to get the best people here. And then he's talking about how like the housing's
But
out
we're
of
not
control.
actually doing that. Like
Yeah.
we're bringing in all these people that the skilled
We're
people
losing our
bringing in
best
are
people.
not actually
Yeah.
skilled people. They're like,
Mm.
you know, like these doing these low level jobs. It's the same thing with the H1B debate in America. These are
Well, we're not
the
even on that
skilled
level. I
migrants
mean,
we're
actually, we
looking
sort of
for.
are. Yeah, we are on that level.
Go
But
ahead, William.
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go. Oh, okay. One of you guys go.
Oh, you go, William. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, I kind of finished my thought there. I don't know where else to take off. But what I would say is, you know, like, yeah, so the principles in the bill, like, is Principle 1, Principle 2, Principle 3, and they're basically like interpretations of what Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3 of what the treaty says. And Principle 1 matches up to what Article 1 should say. I think it's basically saying the, you know, the crown is going to be the government now. Like,
Yeah,
it's ceding sovereignty, basically.
That is exactly what it is. Yeah.
But Article 2, what the treaty was trying to do there, and the difficulty here is that the English version and the Maori version say slightly different things. So in the Maori version, the emphasis in Article 2 is like Maori can keep their property, they can keep their traditional fisheries, and also the debate really is over the idea of tino rangatiratanga. Like it kind of says in the Maori version, you know, the Maori chiefs can keep governorship over their tribes and their communities, which implies that, you know, they can keep running their society, their tribal societies the way they always have been. And the English version is less explicit on that point. The Act version in Principle 2 basically says it only focuses on the property rights. And so that's really where I think it's not an honest reflection of what the treaty says. And then Article 3, it talks about, Article 3 of the treaty really says, you know, now that the Crown's in charge, we're going to extend to Maori the same rights that British citizens have.
Yeah.
But the language used in Principle 3 in the Treaty Principles Bill talks about everyone having the same rights, which isn't exactly the same thing, because
Well, I
the
mean,
treaty doesn't talk about everyone. The treaty talks about
British.
Maori having the rights of British citizens. It doesn't talk about everyone having the same rights. Those are two different things. So ACT is trying to sneak in like liberal universal individualism into the meaning
Well,
of the treaty.
that's their
That's
ideology.
right. They are. Yeah. So he's a subversive by definition. He is subverting New Zealand in favor of what, be it his self-interest or what
His ideology.
Yeah.
his ideology.
Or global interest as well. But having said all that, having made those criticisms, what he's saying the principles mean is probably more accurate than what
they're just saying is like
Oh,
Maori can
yeah.
get whatever they want and get as much money as they want. That's basically what it is now.
Treaty principles mean Maori get whatever they want. That is actually the honest interpretation of what it is.
Well, that's what it currently is now. So,
Oh, jeez.
So-
we should just be like pushing Maoris and strollers and having them like deliver KFC to their cot and just like all this kind of stuff that, you know, because it's like they are like achieving a baby like status, or they were on the trajectory to. That's what I say. I know you two don't endorse that, but that's fine.
well, anyways.
but I do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But
no,
it is like that. If you focus all your energy on extracting rents from the government, which is of what these
government, local councils,
iwis are doing, like you're not putting resources into building your own stuff, building up your own things. There is something negative about that, and it's that's a zero-sum game. So everything that iwi get out of that is something that New Zealand taxpayers lose. So it creates this divisive us against them situation from the get-go. I mean, I think it's good. There were legitimate historical grievances there. It's good to try and settle them, but at a certain point you have to say, you know,
it's like, look,
okay,
we're not giving you any
you've
more
done
money.
enough of this
Yeah.
now you have to move on.
You got
And
your
it just-
reparations, like the iwi's got all this money, there you go.
It just seems like the more we indulge this, the rather than Maori being satisfied with it, the more we sort of give them an inch, the more they're taking a mile. That's how it seems to a lot of Kiwis, I think.
It's
and
a
they just want-
failure of NZ First because, yeah, again, just being like, look, we've given you everything we're going to give you. Yeah, you're done. It's like a much better position than, you know, trying to make the treaty
they're
some like
claiming
globalist.
90% of the coast, the foreshore and seabed is like,
Yeah, that's
it's
just ridiculous.
It's retarded. Like, you know, that's a good way to get offside with all non-Maori New
Yeah,
Zealanders.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, the
And
NZ
wanting
First.
the minerals under the sea, like, you know.
Yeah, no,
you-
that's just stupid.
Sure, yeah, sure. Like in some places you would have fished there, but you did, like,
You weren't doing
weren't-
undersea mining.
No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
bullshit.
yeah. So just like actually being like, no, we've given you everything we're going to give you is a, you know, a much better position.
Yeah, it's
So-
sort of point you have to be like the dad and you have to say no, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and the Act Bill actually doesn't really do that, so that's true. It would be good if NZ First had a more clear position on that and they actually marketed it, because I didn't really know NZ First position until like you just said it just then. So there you go. Which is actually a fairly good
yeah,
one.
I mean, that's unfortunate because I mean, I've been in my other various media appearances and stuff. I've been talking about this for quite a while. It is a thing that's been out there, so it's just I have heard this though that a lot of people aren't aware that that is a thing that is happening. So they haven't done a good job of letting people know that that's what they're doing.
Well, I guess in other news, with did you guys listen to Luxon's State of the Nation speech, where he basically just said like his plan going forward for the next year is just trying to get as much foreign investment as possible for like GMO and AI? That's like that's it. That's all he really said. But it was a pretty pathetic State of the Nation. Your plan is just to get like BlackRock and Saudis and to like people in Dubai to invest into New Zealand so we can do GMO. It's like,
They may as well call themselves like the BlackRock Party or something.
Yeah.
It's totally ridiculous. But I mean, one thing that really like we're dumping on Act, and that's good. I'm more bullish on the NZ First. That perhaps I don't have to say why, but in future episodes we'll kind of discuss this because one of the things that's really worrying is, despite all these obvious like holes and just kind of retardation and Acts like policy and what their sort of overall plan is for New Zealand, a lot of New Zealanders, at least online, like and sometimes in person too, like they like Seymour, like they like him.
how can you
And
like?
it's-
He's like an autistic person. He might actually
he's like
be
a
autistic.
derp.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
derp.
What they're doing very cleverly is that they're taking a lot of the upset about like the co-governance, and where he was in the race stuff, but then they're redirecting that into stuff that doesn't really serve the interests of white people or
the colorblind meritocracy.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really the issue. But I mean, I like a lot of what ACT does in other areas. They're doing good stuff on farm regulation. They're doing
Regulation and reducing the size of the government are all good things. Yeah,
those are all good things. So I don't want to bag them completely. I just want to criticize them where I think they're wrong about things.
but then they're terrible on
that's
migration
fine.
as well. They're like as pro migration as like Labour and the Greens.
The thing is, and you guys can dissect this if you want in future or now or in future episodes, but I think like you would get everything that you would get with Act that is good with NZ First, but with Act like you'll maybe get that, and then all this like BS, all this nonsense. So you may as well like the reason I feel
largely agree. Yes.
Yeah, the reason why people are voting for ACT is because of this, treaty principles, race kind of stuff that is forcing David into the limelight. But you would get that anyway with NZ First and a lot more. It's a much more solid choice. The fact that people don't see that is kind of wild to me. I mean, people don't have their thinking caps on, evidently, obviously, and it's just like people need to wisen up. I mean, ACT is just not. Believe me, this is just another iteration of what we're seeing in the United States, and it's why so emphatic about talking about this stuff, because it is like a replication of what we're seeing in the US and across the world. This is the same sort of avenue that a lot of globalist people would like to take our nations in, and it's important we learn the lessons of Europe and the United States.
Yeah, well, I mean, the right wing's on the rise in pretty much everywhere in the West except like New Zealand. It's sort of, and maybe Canada as well. So you got Trump, you've got like in the UK, you've got, Farage isn't perfect, but he's obviously better than like Labour and the Tories. So you got like these figures rising up and overtaking the established parties. But in New Zealand, we just keep having like National and Labour all the time. It's
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
people.
Winston's good, but he's like, what is he, 76 or
yeah.
something?
I mean, Shane Jones is going to take over the party when he steps down, so we don't really know what his leadership's going to be like. But just something to think
I
about.
like Shane Jones. He says some
I
good things. He
largely
said
like
some
him
good
as well.
things on immigration recently as well.
I like
I'm
it. Yeah.
gonna have to step off and go shortly, guys. But,
Yeah, okay. We'll probably wrap it up anyway. I mean, just anything you want to say about the GMO, because we sort of briefly touched on that. Should we just?
And I don't have a lot to say about that, really.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous that was actually.
Any closing comments in general, Will, or?
Well, I think closing comments is I mean, you would obviously, I'm disagreeing with you a little bit here, but I mean, I think there's a lot to be positive about with the Trump election. And there's some interesting things happening in New Zealand politics now as well. We've got Treaty Principles Bill. I might not agree with everything that ACT's doing. I still think that the public discussion of the issue is a really good thing.
Yeah,
It's
I
getting
agree.
A lot of
Yeah.
different ideas on the table. We've also got the puberty blockers consultation. So recently, if you remember all the stuff about the CAS review and all that stuff, the Ministry of Health recently called for submissions into extra measures that should be extra safety measures that should be put in place for the prescription of puberty blockers.
They should just ban it.
Like they should. I mean, I put in a submission, actually, a personal submission that said precisely that. It's like that's an abomination that we're doing that.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be a lot of interesting issues coming up next year politically, I think, in New Zealand. So
even this year we got local elections. So
yeah, the government, the New Zealand government, like there's some positive signs there, but you just get the feeling they're not really kind of pushing it as hard or as fast as what they could. There's some sort of lackluster elements there. Is Nicola Willis really doing a good job as finance minister? We've still got a huge, spending problem, deficit problem. She's actually made it worse since Grant Robertson.
Well, that's because our economy's like going down the toilet because we keep.
You just wish that these guys could just do a little bit better. Let's push a little bit harder. Like I want to back them, I want to support them, but just give us a little bit more. I mean, that's really how I feel about the New Zealand political situation.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to actually have like some vision from, it'll probably come from New Zealand first. Like, in this next election, they need to, hopefully Trump sets an example that, these right-wing populist policies work and, you see a vast improvement in the USA. And hopefully you get people trying to pressure NZ First, pressure National and ACT and all these parties and be like, look, we want the same things happening in America happening here. Like mass deportations worked in America. Why can't we do it here? That sort of thing. So we sort of you sort of hope Trump succeeds because then you can use it as a a place to point to where it's like, look, they deported 10 million migrants and the cost of living like improved vastly as you'd expect. So there you go.
Yeah, I can think of no better way to send in a resounding punch to the political establishment in New Zealand than to going all in on NZ First, because it is that party that has something of a Trump-like aura to it, where it is that thing that will not be touched in a positive light in the media, and as such in the mind of many New Zealanders. So if we had that as a platform with the platform as Trump, as you say, Hector, being successful in that regard, then yeah, that would be a great signal to people. But in order to do that, I think you have to go all in NZ First.
Yeah. I mean, you've also got Austria as well, where the right-wing Freedom Party is now forming a government finally after being blocked for about, the president there wasted like 4 months of everyone's times and didn't let the right wing actually form a government. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully that's positive as well. But anyways, William, I know you got to go. Thanks for joining us today.
No, look, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. It's good to talk about this stuff, and I hope you guys all had a good, New Year, Christmas holiday, and I hope all the people listening did as well. And we're all geared up and ready for another good year of politics and commentary and all that good stuff.
There's definitely going to be a lot to talk about with Trump back in the White House. At least it won't be boring like with Biden there. So
yeah, he's entertaining. I mean, I love it as a commentator. Like, it's just great stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. And thanks you for everyone that tuned in. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you have a great weekend. And we hope to see you again next time. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, stay blessed, not stressed.